We're going to go ahead and get started in 1 minute. Why did they go over there? The June 9th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll? Mr. Alcoffer.
Here.
Mr. Alcoffer is present. Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Mr. Ansello is present. Ms. Barnhart.
Here.
Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baroff.
Here.
Ms. Baroff is present. Mr. Baines.
Here.
Mr. Baines is present. Ms. Boyce.
Here.
Ms. Boyce is present. Mr. Brew.
Here.
Mr. Brew is present. President Carbone. Here. President Carbone is present. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is present. Ms. DeFlorio.
Here.
Ms. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Felder is present. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell is present. Ms. Hassman.
Here.
Ms. Hassman is present. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Hebert is present. Mr. Keofit-Lacey.
Here.
Mr. Keofit-Lacey is present. Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Ms. Lamar is present. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. Marinetti.
Here.
Mr. Marinetti is present. Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Mr. Morelli is present. Ms. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Roman is present. Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Ms. Taylor is present. Mr. Turp.
Here.
Turp is present. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox is excused. Mr. Will.
Here.
Mr. Will is present. Mr. Udelson.
Here.
Mr. Udelson is present. And Mr. Zale.
Here.
Mr. Zale is present.
We will now need to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purpose of prohibiting public in-person attendance in accordance with Executive Order 202.1 issued by Governor Andrew M. Cuomo on March 12, 2020. We have a motion before you which is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator Zale. This is a non-debatable motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. I would like to call upon Legislator Michael Udelson, Executive Director of Temple Breath Kodesh, who has been invited by Legislator Baines to lead us in a moment of prayer.
Mr. President, thank you to you and my fellow legislators for allowing me this honor. My heartfelt thanks to my friend and colleague, Legislator John Baines, for inviting me to offer the prayer. Just to clarify, I'm not a rabbi, don't play one on TV, but I am, as you said, the executive director at Temple Beth Kodesh, where I'm also a lifelong member. Every week, our Sabbath prayer includes our Sabbath service includes a prayer for our country, which I've adapted because I find it to be especially applicable at this time. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation and county always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Let us celebrate and sustain the things that unite us and endeavor to understand and adjust things that divide us. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be idle in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders, grant this honorable body, wisdom and forbearance. May we govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you in our community. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country and county be sound in body and spirit. And I will add, this is our wish, this is our prayer, and let's say together, amen. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much, Legislator Udelson. Please stand as Legislator Sabrina Lamar will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to
To the flag
the flag
States of America,
and to the republic
of the United
stands
States
which
of
stands
America,
one nation,
under
under God,
under God, indivisible,
justice for
liberty,
all.
and justice for all.
for all.
Your copies of the journals of Day 9, May 12, 2020, and Day 10, May 26, 2020, and Day 11, June 4th, 2020, are available through Novus Agenda. Without exception, the journal will stand approved as submitted. This meeting has been closed to the public, and all legislators are participating via teleconference in accordance with Executive Order 202.1. In keeping with this legislature's tradition of openness, the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube through the legislature's official channel. Everyone participating via video or teleconference will please mute their devices except to obtain the floor or cast a vote. If seeking to obtain the floor, please simply state your name and wait for me to call on you before proceeding with your question or statement. The clerk will read the full title of each resolution and referral to avoid any confusion as to which item is before the legislature. All votes will be held via voice vote unless a roll call is requested. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Novus Agenda as well as online. The governor's executive order permitting remote meetings has been extended through June 27th. Committees are presently scheduled June 22nd through June 24th. We will likely once again meet as a committee of the whole, which would be convened through a special meeting. Please stay tuned for updates, and thank you for your patience. There are no proclamations scheduled this evening. We will now recess for the purpose of holding a series of public hearings. Those wishing to address the legislature for this scheduled public hearing were instructed to call a conference line. That line has been patched into this meeting.
We'll just need to take a 5-minute in-place recess as the first public hearing is not scheduled to start until 6:15 p.m. So we'll just need to pause for 5 minutes if everyone could bear with us. Thank you. For anyone who may have joined the YouTube live stream, we're currently just in a 5-minute recess as we await the scheduled start time for the legislature's first public hearing, which is 6:15 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, I now declare open the public hearing entitled American Sign Language Interpreters at all Monroe County Government Press Conferences held during emergency situations.
Is there anyone present on the phone wishing to speak on this matter?
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed. I now declare open the public hearing entitled Enacting a Local Law Amending the Monroe County Charter to Change the Date for Filling Vacancies in the Monroe County Legislature.
Is there anyone present on the phone wishing to speak on this matter?
There being none, I now declare this public hearing closed. I will now reconvene the June 9th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We'll now hold the public forum. Mr. Clerk.
We have two individuals wishing to participate in the public forum. One provided an audio transcription they wish to be read, and the other was submitted via email. First public forum comment comes from Paul Frisella. His statement is as follows. There are 2 points to my speech. We need a vaccine, and soon. The second part is we need to explore space beyond the Earth, the moon, Mars, etc. Get off the Earth. And there's a third thing I'm going to include right here. The third thing is this. I left my legislator, the lady who replaced Mr. Shepard, messages at the end of last year, and this legislator never responded to me in any way, shape, or form. She didn't even say, I cannot help you. She just ignored my messages totally. This is the lady legislator who replaced Mr. Shepherd. I want to comment that her ignoring my messages totally is unprofessional, and I recommend her boss have a word with her about that. Those are the three things I was going to say, and the third thing I just mentioned now, but the other two I had planned. The third thing I decided to mention just now, you are to convey that to the appropriate person. The second comment comes from Christina Chrisman. Tonight, you will be voting to approve additional titles eligible to receive hazard pay. Unfortunately, many DHS workers are still not included on that list. Per the statement of County Attorney John Bringawat at the meeting of May 12th, quote, broad classifications are eligible for reimbursement, close quote. One of the classifications included was human services, quote, where those services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 crisis, close quote. The workers in the financial care path have been working tirelessly to deliver essential services to our community in response to COVID. Applications and caseloads increase as a direct result of this crisis. We are not provided personal protective equipment in a timely manner. In fact, we did not receive our promised bundle of 25 masks until the week after masks were distributed to the community, and we also have not yet received requested face shields, even though they have already been provided to certain members of the community by the county. Administration compared working in the buildings to being as safe as shopping at Walmart. However, no one shops at Walmart for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Even Walmart gave their employees hazard pay. Thank you to all the legislators who asked questions and spoke up for us at the May 12th meeting. We appreciate you. We are asking the administration to do the right thing and add us to the hazard pay list, along with the dozens of other titles you will be approving tonight. Thank you. This concludes the public forum.
We'll now proceed with the consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 20-0126, providing that local law, intro number 189 of 2020, entitled enacting a local law entitled American Sign Language Interpreters at all Monroe County government press conferences held during emergency situations be lifted from the table.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Boyce and Delahanty. This is a motion to lift from the table. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item carries. Next item, please.
Item number 2, referral 20-0126, providing that local law, intro number 189 of 2020, entitled enacting a local law entitled American Sign Language Interpreters at all Monroe County government press conferences held during emergency situations be adopted.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Boyce and Delahanty. Is that correct?
Legislator Morelli moved it, Mr. President. I'd like to be noted.
And moved by Legislator Morelli.
Thank you,
This
Mr.
is to
President.
adopt. You're welcome. This is to adopt. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 3, referral 20-0142, providing that local law, intro number 192 of 2020, entitled enacting local law, amending the Monroe County Charter to change the date for filling vacancies in the Monroe County Legislature be lifted from the table.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is a motion to lift from the table. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item. Item 4.
Yep. Item number 4, referral 20-0142, providing that local law, intro number 192 of 2020, entitled enacting local law, amending the Monroe County Charter to change the date for filling vacancies in the Monroe County Legislature be adopted.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. We will now proceed with the consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda?
Item number 5, referral 20-0176, confirming reappointment to the Monroe Community College Board of Trustees.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Taylor, seconded by legislators Turp and Alcoffer. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Baines?
Yes, legislator Baines.
Would the clerk please read into the record the names of the appointees to the Monroe County College Board of Trustees for the public to hear, please?
I'll go ahead and read the whole resolution, Mr. President. Reappointment to the Monroe Community College Board of Trustees, be it resolved by the Legislature of the County of Monroe as follows. Section 1, in accordance with New York State Education Law, Section 6306, and Monroe County Charter, Section C7-3, Ms. Grace Tillinghast, 79 Donna Road, Rochester, New York, 14606, is hereby reappointed to the Monroe Community College Board of Trustees for a term to be effective July 1, 2020, and expiring on June 30, 2027. Section 2, this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Is that sufficient, legislator Baines?
That was brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 6, referral 20-0177, accepting grant from Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, State Municipal Facilities Program, accepting gift from Vietnam Veterans of the American, Chapter number 20, Rochester, New York, Inc., and accepting gift from Warriors of Freedom Memorial Committee for design, construction, and maintenance of War on Terror Memorial in Highland Park South.
Move it, Mr. President. Second.
Moved by legislator Alcoffer, seconded by legislators Hebert and Wilt. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 7, referral 20-0178, amending Resolution 69 of 2020 entitled Accept Maintenance Jurisdiction of approximately .137 acre of right-of-way for former New York State Highway Route number 401, Rapids, Rochester, Town of Gates, and release maintenance jurisdiction of approximately .321 acre of right-of-way of the former New York State Highway Route number 401, Rapids, Rochester, in the Town of Gates to the State of New York to amend acreage in Section 2.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Smith. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 8, referral 20-0179, authorizing acquisition of interest in real property for Middle Road Culverts Replacement Project between the Erie Station Road and Rush Henrietta Town Line Road in the Town of Henrietta.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 9, referral 20-0180, authorizing acquisition of interest in real property for Whitney Road Culvert Rehabilitation Project between East Linden Avenue and Oak Hill Terrace in Town of Perrington.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 10, referral 20-0181, authorizing acquisition of interest in real property for North Road Highway Improvement between Scottsville Tri Road and Scottsville Road in the Village of Scottsville.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 11, referral 20-0182, authorizing acquisition of interest in real property for Willard Road Culvert Rehabilitation Project between Mendon Center Road and Clover Street in town of Pittsford.
Move it, Mr. President.
second,
Moved by legislator Wilt, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 12, referral 20-0183, amending resolution 206 of 2016 to accept additional funding from New York State Department of Health and extending time period and increasing intermunicipal agreement with City of Rochester in contract with Cornell University for childhood lead poisoning primary prevention program.
So move, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator
Second.
Hebert, seconded by legislators Alcoffer and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item, 13.
Item number 13, referral 20-0184, amending resolution 212 of 2019 to accept additional funding from New York State Department of Health and extending time period for Healthy Neighborhoods program.
So move, Mr. President.
second,
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Number 14.
Item number 14, referral 20-0185, authorizing contract with Monroe Community College to provide certified nursing assistant training program for new employees at Monroe Community Hospital.
So move, Mr. President.
second,
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 15, referral 20-0186, accepting grant from New York State Office for the Aging for Age-Friendly Planning Grant Program.
So move, Mr. President.
Legislator
second,
Hebert, legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 16, referral 20-0187, authorizing contract with CHA Consulting, Inc. for design services for Rehabilitate Taxiway F and Connecting Taxiways project at Greater Rochester International Airport.
Move it, Mr. President.
second,
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 17, referral 20-0188, accepting reimbursement from New York State Unified Court System for improvements at Hall of Justice as requested by New York State Unified Court System.
Move it, Mr. President.
second,
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 18, referral 20-0189, authorizing sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at Shangri-La Lane in town of Webster.
move it, Mr. President,
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 19, referral 20-0190, approving 2020-2024 strategic plan and 2020 annual action plan for housing and community development in suburban Monroe County and grant submission to U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Move it, Mr. President.
second,
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 20, referral 20-0191, accepting 2 grants from U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act Provider Relief Fund, Health and Human Services Stimulus Phase 1 and 2 at Monroe Community Hospital.
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item carries. 21.
Item number 21, referral 20-0192, accepting 5 grants from New York State Office for the Aging for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act and the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and amending Resolution 401 of 2019 for authorization to contract for Monroe County Office for the Aging programs in 2020 to 2021.
So moved, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 22, referral 20-0193, accepting grant from United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs for fiscal year 2020 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 23, referral 20-0194, authorizing intermunicipal agreements with City of Rochester, Towns of Brighton, Chi-Lai, Clarkson, Gates, Greece, Hamlin, Henrietta, Arundecoit, Mendon, Ogden, Parma, Penfield, Parrington, Pittsford, Rigo, Rush, Sweden, Webster, and Wheatland, Town/Village of East Rochester, villages of Rockport, Churchville, Fairport, Hilton, Honey Falls, Pittsford, Scottsville, Spencerport, and Webster, local school districts and local fire districts for reimbursement of COVID-19 related expenses in accordance with the CARES Act.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Alcoffer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Legislator
Yes,
Baines.
there is, Mr.
Legislator
President.
Baines.
Legislator Baines.
Go ahead, legislator Baines.
I'd like to make a motion to amend this,
Second.
this referral.
Second.
Okay, motion to
And I-
amend by legislator Baines, seconded by legislator Morelli.
And Mafucci, second.
And legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, President Dr. Carbone. My amendment
Thank you.
would be to, and I provided a copy to Clerk Jack, would be to add to the current referral the sentence after, in accordance with the CARES Act, comma, well, thank you for putting that up there, Clerk Jack, or for reimbursement of revenue losses incurred due to the COVID-19 public health emergency, should such revenue losses become eligible for reimbursement under the CARES Act. I make this motion having collaborated with County Executive Bello, with Jeff McCann, and with County Attorney John Bringawat.
Any discussion on the amendment?
Josh Barth.
Yes, legislator Barth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I simply want to say that I think this is a fine attempt to provide as much flexibility and opportunity for the various locations and municipalities around Monroe County to take most advantage of the CARES funding, should it become available for that purpose. And I think this is a fine opportunity to work together on this. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposed to the amendment? Amendment passes. Back to the original item.
As amended.
As amended.
Yes, Legislator Zale.
Legislator Zale, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 questions through you to the administration. The first question is, at the time that we are considering this for a vote, I'm just curious, really, for my own knowledge, to know what's the current balance of the CARES funding that started at $129 million.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Actually, I would defer. I'm not sure if Jennifer Cesario is on the phone. First, let me just state that we had received a letter from Legislator Hebert requesting this information, which we had received yesterday. I know we had a conversation earlier about it. We will be in a position to have that information available to Legislator Hebert tomorrow. We should have everything calculated. I guess I would ask if Jennifer Cesario is on the phone, which I believe she is, if she has a ballpark estimate of what we have committed to date.
That'd be perfect.
Yep, I'm here. This is Jennifer Cesario. Through you, Mr. President, the current actuals that we've expensed is $8,114,298.
And through you, Mr. President, the administration, just again, I wasn't a Common Core student, so you're saying that we have spent $8 million of the $129 million, and that includes the back pay, the back hazard pay that has already been approved?
Through you, Mr. President, yeah, the hazard pay is currently an estimate. We're still working out some payroll reporting for that, but that is including the back pay for hazard pay.
Wow, thank you very much. Seems like we still have quite a pot there for the various needs in the community, and certainly appreciate just how far that these funds are attempting to reach, and certainly with the announcement of masks going to restaurants as well. One follow-up question that I have, this is my second question, of course. I'm just curious, we did get a list of Q&A, kind of an update a bit for the guidelines. I'm just curious, is there anything else that you might be able to share with us through you, Mr. President, the administration, on some of the other items that might be on a list somewhere of things that you'd like for this funding to go towards as we consider this motion that's before us?
Through you, Mr. President, you know, I believe we've had some discussions about this previously, but I'd be happy to sort of give a very general overview where we are with things, or some of the other items that might be forthcoming with this. I guess the one thing I would stress. I guess the one thing I would stress through you, Mr. President, is throughout this experience of COVID and our response to COVID, it's been very much a moving target, probably more so than anything I've been familiar with at my term working in government. Some of the things we look at out on the horizon that present us with a lot of uncertainty, and again, I obviously the fact that we've only committed $8 million is good news. But again, not knowing what the future has in mind for us, one of the biggest things that we're still we still have on the ledger as a possibility is a field hospital. And you know, you go back a couple of months ago, and you know, healthcare experts were telling us that at a peak week we might need 4,500 beds to meet the demand on a weekly basis of people affected by COVID. So obviously that didn't happen. Obviously, the numbers that we've been experiencing have been actually relatively good news in terms of a low number of infections. But again, if there is a spike that happens in the fall, we don't necessarily know what's going to be facing us. So we had estimated roughly to stand up a field hospital in the convention center for a 3-month period would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 million. That's without question the biggest expense that we would be looking at. Again, if we get into a significant spike in the fall, standing up what's referred to as a step-down facility, which is something that would help clear people out of the hospital who maybe don't need a level of care that would require hospitalization but aren't ready to go home. That would be somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately $5 million or so. And there are some other costs, but those are really the big ones. And also, not knowing what we're looking at, we have, Legislator Zale, as you've mentioned, we have distributed a significant amount of PPE to hospitals, to organizations, to the public, in an effort to try to help kick off the economic recovery with that. So again, we have a stockpile of that left, and again, we do have plans, and we're in the process of trying to procure more of that in the future. Again, just to have to replenish our stockpile and also sort of position us for the fall or the winter in case there is a second spike there.
Yeah, that gives me a great idea of some of the bigger things, Mr. McCann, and appreciate the answers and the feedback from the administration. Thank you.
That's Mr. President.
I've got a question, Mr. McCann. I didn't understand something. Are you saying you've already spent $8 million or you've committed $8 million? Because she said spent and you said committed.
Yes, through you, Mr. President, that what I sent, we've expensed. There are some things that we have purchase orders out there that aren't expensed yet. So there is some additional things out there that we still haven't expensed.
Was that in the $8 million, or is that commitments not already figured in the $8 million?
No. Through you, Mr. President, that is not in that $8 million.
Would you have a ballpark figure of how much dollar-wise you have in commitments right now?
Through you, Mr. President, that number is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to add this up real fast.
That's okay, take your time.
Around $6 million, $6.5 million, approximately.
On top of the 8.
Which is, right, and through you, Mr. President, that includes, oh wait, I'm sorry. That it does include additional hazard pay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, this is Legislator Brew.
Go ahead, Legislator Brew, you have the floor.
Yes, I do have a few remarks regarding this referral. If I may, thank you, Mr. President. From the onset, the local response to the COVID-19 pandemic has been community-based, with all levels of government working together to best protect the community. Many municipalities, school districts, fire districts have gone beyond expectations, often at an increased cost. The legislation we are proposing would provide relief to our municipalities and help alleviate the burden facing our local taxpayers. As this legislator knows, we've accepted $129 million as federal CARES Act funding to aid the community response to COVID-19. According to the guidelines issued by the United States Department of Treasury, Monroe County can share these funds with the municipal partners to cover authorized COVID-19 related expenses. However, as it has been stated repeatedly, the bill itself prohibits the county from using these funds to fill revenue shortfalls. Monroe County has a longstanding tradition of sharing resources and services with our local government partners. Members of the Republican caucus and I have talked with town supervisors and other local elected officials, and it is clear that they are facing additional COVID-related expenses. Looking towards the future and phased reopenings, there will be a new unforeseen expenses facing local governments. These funds provide them with the resources they need to safely provide essential services to residents.
The legislation before you today would authorize the county executive to enter into intermunicipal agreements with the state and local government units so that the county may begin reimbursing them for authorized expenses. And therefore, I will be voting yes to support the amended referral.
Mr. President?
Thank you. Yes,
Legislator Baines,
go ahead, Legislator Baines.
I rise to explain my vote. I applaud the members of the majority caucus for extending this bill via the amendment to what we hope will soon be a change in the federal legislation, which authorizes the county executive in his discretion to support our local government partners, fire departments, school districts, and municipal entities with replacement of revenue. I think it's significant that the original referral vested in the county executive the trust of the legislature to execute these intermunicipal agreements in the most equitable and fair way. And I believe it speaks volumes to the county executive's willingness to accept accountability for his own actions, in that if and when the time comes that the federal government authorizes the release of more of these funds for revenue replacement, that the county executive is willing to step forward and make the difficult choices of which municipalities' revenue shortfalls would warrant support from this fund, and also that he will balance the need of the county to access these funds as well, because we have significant revenue shortfalls as well. And I would call on all of my fellow legislators, and I would call on our county to redouble our efforts to lobby our federal government partners in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate to authorize the release of these dollars to help our taxpayers. And further, I would hope that we would all join in the effort to increase the COVID assistance for municipalities and states that Governor Cuomo has been pushing for, because those dollars also can flow to our government partners and replace revenue lost during this catastrophic pandemic. I will obviously and very proudly be voting yes for this referral this evening. Thank you, President Dr. Carbone.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Legislator Hebert?
Yes, Legislator Hebert.
Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, just one quick question. I've repeatedly heard the field hospital mentioned and the step-down facilities. Are either of those funded partially by FEMA?
Through you, Mr. President, it's my understanding with the CARES Act guidance that CARES Act money has to be spent before FEMA reimbursement can be sought.
Thank you, sir.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. Next item.
Item number 24, referral 20-0195, mortgage tax distribution.
Move it, Mr. President.
Legislator Delahanty, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. 25.
Item number 25, referral 20-0203, approving addition of classifications of Monroe County employees eligible for hazard pay due to greater risk of exposure or working hours due to county's response to COVID-19.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Hebert.
Yes, Mr.
Legislator Hebert, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have several questions through you to the administration. What is the total cost of pay period of these additional 86 workers in Schedule C?
Through you, Mr. President, we estimate that the total for everyone with hazard pay is approximately $610,000 per pay period.
Thank you. Just for clarification, through you, Mr. President, to the administration, is that for these 86 workers, or is that for Schedules A, B, and C?
Through you, Mr. President, that's for Schedules A, B, and C.
Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, do you know what it is just for these 86 workers?
Through you, Mr. President, my understanding is that it's approximately $21,500 per pay period. And actually, if Ms. Cesario could just confirm that, I'm pretty sure that's the number, but if she could confirm that.
Through you, Mr. President, yes, Mr. McCann's correct.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, this referral was amended, and I received it just a few hours ago. The original referral had an additional 166 workers, mostly in the county clerk's office and the parks department, with a couple of airport employees. Why were these employees dropped in the amended referral?
Through you, Mr. President, I guess I would, in part, offer the answer that I gave a couple of referrals ago. The whole response to COVID and the CARES Act funding has been very much a moving target as we've gone through this. The original referral that was before your honorable body was actually submitted to Mr. Moffett in the clerk's office on Thursday, because that was the list that we had as of Thursday, and then we discovered on Monday. The governor, I believe it was Sunday night or Monday morning, had actually made a change or rescinded an executive order, the executive order that required 50% of governmental employees to work from home or not be in the office. In light of that change in policy, it made us re-examine our definition of hazard pay and who was eligible for that. But also, in addition to that, we also found updated guidance that I think had been put up on the CARES Act website maybe at some point last week, I believe, that actually added a section to their frequently asked questions section that indicated potential exposure to the public or more people would not necessarily count in terms of being eligible for hazard pay being a reimbursable expense with that. So as a result of that, we decided to take another look at that list, and the two categories of employees that you referenced, legislator, the clerk's office, and the parks department, we made a determination after reviewing it internally that those folks were deemed eligible because of their contact with the public. So if I could just go on a little bit further with that, we decided to not include them in this round of hazard pay in terms of the additions, and what will also happen as a result of that is we will go back and take a look at the previous list. And sort of use that with a fresh set of eyes with the new guidance provided by the governor and also with the CARES Act guidance with that. So I guess I would just, in anticipation of what I'm sure is a question on many people's minds, we feel as though this should not have a big influence on people who are deemed eligible going back and looking at it. Internal conversations we've had have been based on the fact that anybody who was working at that time would have been an essential employee and would have been dealing with issues in response to the COVID pandemic going on. So we feel as though we're on solid footing, but we will go back and take a look at that. If there needs to be amendments to that list, we will certainly be in communication with the leadership of both sides and look to have an amended referral put forward. But also, I think we feel as though we're on solid footing because everything that was done up until this point was based on the guidance that was provided to us on the CARES Act website. So I know I've said a lot there, but we will be revisiting the issue. And again, there very well might be future action that we would request the legislature to approve.
Through the president to the administration, I'm just a little confused on how Governor Cuomo's rescinding of his or changing of his executive order, I guess is a better way to put it, requiring that 50% of employees or more work from home impacted in a reduced way the number of employees that would qualify, since his order meant more can actually come back to work on premise, etc. So could you just re-explain that portion for me, please?
Absolutely, through you, Mr. President. I guess I would characterize it more as a philosophical review of our policy and our decision making with this. I think part of the rationale and part of the justification for hazard pay had been that we were asking our employees to take actions and to take steps that frankly other people weren't taking. And as the governor has lifted that restriction and as society opens back up again, we decided that it was appropriate to, again, look at this through a new lens of the situation has changed. And again, looking at this moving forward, the data that we're being presented with in terms of the number of new cases being identified and everything, as society opens up more, which I think we can all agree we're hopeful will happen sooner rather than later. The whole concept of hazard pay and how we move forward with it had to be revisited.
All right, through you, Mr. President. 35 of the employees in the amended Schedule C show effective dates for hazard pay of pay period 9, which was April 24th. An additional 40 show effective dates for hazard pay of pay period 10, which was May 8th. Why were they not included in Schedule A or B that we already approved on those two prior occasions?
Through you, Mr. President, anyone who would have been, who were proposing be granted hazard pay from pay period 9 would have fallen into one of two categories. It would have been an oversight and somebody who was a title that was left off of the original list either by oversight or also by a re-examination of their duties And again, sort of after being asked to reconsider that, it would either be, it was either an oversight or a reconsideration of an original decision, would be the people regarding pay period 9. In terms of people after pay period 9, I think the largest number of those would be people who are employees of the Board of Elections, and those were people who were coming back into the office after that. So they were not necessarily working from pay period 9. So that's why they've been added after that, and that starts with the pay period where they're working.
Okay, through you, Mr. President, one last question. At least that's all I anticipate. Since this hazard pay goes through either the end of the current state of emergency that has been declared, what are the criteria for declaring an end to the state of emergency that the administration has in mind, please?
Through you, Mr. President. Yeah, I would answer that by saying it really depends on when a decision is made that this is no longer a public health crisis to the point where it would warrant the state of emergency. And that's something that the county executive a decision the county executive would make in consultation with Dr. Mendoza and other public health officials as we move forward with this.
So through you, Mr. President, there are no specific criteria you're even considering at this point in time?
Through you, Mr. President, you know, that's going to be a judgment call that will be made as we get further along. And you know, I don't want to be in a position through you, Mr. President, where we're predicting the future at all. But I would say in discussions I've been a part of and privy to, I think the recent numbers have all been very encouraging and are definitely heading in the right direction. And I guess I would offer the personal observation or the personal hope that that this is winding down. But in terms of a specific date or time frame, I would hesitate to do that.
Through you, Mr. President of the administration, and just to be clear, I wasn't asking for date or time frame. I was asking for criteria. And just so you're aware. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr.
Any
President,
further discussion? Yes,
Legislator DeFlorio.
Florio, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Through you to the administration, just for clarification, I think I understood what you said, but I would just maybe like to hear you say it again. You indicated that with the town agencies or government agencies now being able to bring more workers back to work, and some of the new guidelines that have been issued, as well as updates to the FAQ documents, that you were going to go back and re-examine the list that you had already created, Schedules A and B of who was entitled to hazard pay. And I was with you up to the point of that you had indicated that you felt you were on safe footing because they were essential workers. But I'm wondering if that essential status has now changed based on the fact that we're now almost into phase 3 of reopening, and more people just in the county, to your point, are back to work. Are we also looking at the fact that although maybe back in April and May, they were entitled to hazard pay, but are no longer based on the new criteria? And are we going to start removing more and more people off the list as more and more of the general public are back to work?
Through you, Mr. President. Yes, legislator, I would just one thing I would clarify in what I had said earlier. The reexamination of hazard pay is really more to do with the updated guidance that we received on the CARES Act information. The decision to who made the list this time was influenced by the governor's decision. Our decision to go back and look at who has received it through the fresh lens of the new guidance is really why we would do that. So again, like I said, I think overall we feel we're on solid footing, but again, we will be re-examining the names, and that definitely is a possibility that there would be titles that would be taken off of the list as a result of the new guidance primarily.
And I guess to further clarify through the president to the administration, some of the titles were initially put on to the list due to as much hazardous conditions as extensive work hours because of everything that was going on. Certain people were working extensive hours, but as things get back to more normal, it seems like those individuals would no longer be required to be working those extreme number of hours. Clearly, a lot of things that were happening 4 weeks ago are no longer happening on a daily basis. So again, it would seem to me that we would start seeing end dates to some of this hazard pay for some of the individuals that probably are no longer working all of these tremendous hours, et cetera, that were doing so. So I guess what I would ask you to do is to really go back and start looking at that list and start trying to look at end dates for some of this, because again, the guidelines for the CARES Act has a lot of other things that we can be utilizing that money for in the community, and to just be handing out hazard pay if it's no longer considered, if people are no longer working under hazardous or extreme conditions, would not be fiscally prudent.
Through you, Mr. President, legislator, we agree with your comments.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, Legislator Boyce.
Yes, Legislator Boyce.
Yes, through the president to the administration. Earlier in the public comment, there was a mention with regards to folks that are working over at DHS and have worked at DHS. And I wondered if any names or titles were submitted for approval for hazard pay from that department.
Through you, Mr. President, I would defer to my counterpart, Ms. Crosdale, if she could answer that.
Hi, through the president, we've not submitted additional names with this round.
Okay, thank you.
Josh Barth.
Yes, Legislator Barth, go ahead.
President, appreciate that. Just one quick question. I'm assuming through you to the administration, the only reason this is a matter of urgency is because we want to make sure that as we update hazard pay for employees, that the monies get to them as quickly as possible. That is the only reason, correct, to the president?
Yes, sir. Through you, Mr. President, that's correct.
Thank you. I only asked because I admit I'm biased against matters of urgency, but this is totally a legitimate one, of course. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Great. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. There being no unfinished business, Majority Leader Brew.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This honorable body, the Monroe County Legislature, stands adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 14th, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Can I say Aaron's last name? Okay, thank you very much. See you next time.